embrace from the mother country. Instead, they found a cold shoulder. Those who had fought beside them in the war now treated them like foreigners who threatened their jobs and their homes. The Notting Hill riots shook Britain, and they would open a new era of intolerance. This is the story of the journey from the streets of Notting Hill to the rivers of blood.
In 15 or 20 years' time, the black man will have the whip hand over the white man.
And it is also the story of change, from post-war austerity to the birth of a new, vibrant edge to British culture.
When we come over here, we brought music, we brought color, we brought dope, we brought life to this goddamn country.
Summer 1958, Notting Hill. This run-down district of London, where many West Indians had settled, had become a byword for white hostility towards black immigrants. But the spark that ignited 6 weeks of violence was a seemingly mundane domestic quarrel on a hot July evening.
The day before the riot started, you got a bloke named Ramon and his wife, we know her as Tanya. They had a fight. And the white people didn't like it, so they went to help her out. Eventually, she's turned on them and started to fight them. So they said, we turn on their own people against them.
This single incident was the set of an explosion of white anger the following night.
Saturday night now I was having its dance, and we heard like a swarm of bees coming. Although the music was playing loud, we could hear the noise from outside, so I went to the top door and looked out, and I saw some mass people, a lot of people coming, with a police van in front, a dog angle in front of the van. And when they reached where the music were playing, they just stopped. And with so much people, they couldn't control them. They started throwing bricks and things like that in the building.
I looked through the 5th floor window where I was, and there was a battle between black men, policemen, white yabos and teddy boys. I mean, the street wasn't lighted except for fires and that, Molotov cocktails and so on. Blood was everywhere, and it was awful.
That night's riot would be just the opening salvo.
Something new and ugly raises its head in Britain, racial violence. An angry crowd of youths chases a Negro into a greengrocer's shop, while police reinforcements are called up to check the riot, one of many that have broken out here in a few days. The injured victim, a Jamaican, is taken to safety.
For the following 6 weeks, black homes were targeted by mobs, night after night. An eyewitness to the riots was newspaper columnist Mervyn Jones.
One went round in the early evening, soon after it got dark, and then you would see a bunch of youngsters, I estimated age 16 to 20, youngsters running through the streets with petrol bottles, usually a beer bottle or something, filled with petrol and with a piece of felt sticking out of it, And when they got to where they knew black people were living, they would smash the window and they would chuck it through the window and start a fire.
Mob violence on this scale was unheard of in the Britain of the time.
I was shocked. We had, I suppose, a rather smug attitude. You know that Britain is an orderly, peaceful society, and these things don't happen here. So I was taken by surprise. I think most people were taken by surprise.
Within days, it was clear that the violence in Notting Hill was not just the spontaneous action of local whites. Young men, many of them teddy boys, were pouring in from other areas to join in the attacks. But an even more sinister force was at work. Sir Oswald Mosley's anti-immigrant union movement had been campaigning in Notting Hill since 1956. Mosley had become notorious in the 1930s as the leader of Britain's fascists.
And I claim that in the ranks of our black shirt legions, march the mighty ghost of England's past.
Discredited during the war for his support of Hitler, he saw Notting Hill as the chance to relaunch his political career.
Mosley jumped on the whole black dimension during and after the riots and said to ordinary English working class people, it's time to wake up and don't let your country be taken over. I remember I saw Mosley once in a very charged atmosphere, and Mosley had the great political technique of hyping a crowd up. Do you want your country to be taken over? Do you want the blacks to live next door to you? Do you want the blacks to take away your jobs? And he asked them pertinent, explosive questions, to which I said, no, no.
But not every white Briton agreed with Mosley.
I heckled him because I disagreed with him. It was, I thought it was a lot of nonsense what he was saying. But the trouble is that if you opposed him, a little while later you'd be followed up the road. You'd be chased up the road by some of his supporters. So you had to be very careful.
By July of 1958, the resentment exploited by Mosley had turned the streets of Notting Hill into a dangerous place for West Indians.
You used to hear a lot of screaming. The teddy boys used to whip them with a chain. Yeah, they used to have chains. It was terrible. Well, you could never go out to help that person otherwise. And you would be putting your life in jeopardy.
The boys, every time they see a black person in the street, they'd fight. You can see I have a cut up here. It's a bicycle chain. See, how was it called? Bicycle chain, ratchet knife, all kind of implement. Police, when we went to the hospital and the police came, they told us the only way we can avoid these things happening to us is to go back where we come from.
The police themselves, we did not see them as upholders of law. They took sides, and they didn't take sides with us. We see them as a part of the enemy because that was their behavior. And so we had clashes even with the police themselves. And out of that riot, without any question, it was quite plain that there was nobody protecting us, so we had to protect ourselves.
By that time, the situation had become so bad that black men used to come from surrounding areas. They would come in solidarity.